Look what I picked up. This is a 1970 Sears Portable 19. It's a black and white all-tube TV from, best I can figure, 1970 based on the date of the CRT inside. And that CRT really seems original. This is a very, very low hours TV. So I went to a record sale, to look at records, and they had a little section with a bunch of old electronics. And this was sitting there, and I was like, oh, that thing looks so cool. It's like those cheap, like I thought this was late 60s, tube TVs when they were starting to be built down to a cost. And the guy's like, oh, you want to plug it in and test it? And I'm thinking, no. But yeah, I did anyway. Yeah. And it powered right up. Full raster, had sound. Tuner was picking up snow. It wasn't quite a filling out the screen completely, which, it's pretty old. So I only had it on for a few seconds and went, yeah, I'll take it. And I bought this and two other items for $25. I'll show a picture of those other items for future fun projects. Now, this was pretty dirty. There was lots of dirt on it, kind of grime. But I think it's just because it had been sitting in a garage or a basement for how many, like 5 decades? Or however long it's not been used. But it did clean up very nicely. All I did was use, a mild dish soap and water. And either a rag or a toothbrush cleaning everything. It all cleaned up beautifully. Didn't need to polish anything. I've gotten into using Novus because a bunch of other YouTubers on here just swear by it, and it works super well. But this is all original. I did nothing to this. This is just in such good shape. So anyway, I decided to do a full recap. And yeah, I know a full recap, just going in blind like that's kind of dumb, but when I saw the low hours of this set, the high voltage, normally with high hour sets, you'll see a lot of dust that's been pulled in and is clumped around the high voltage. This didn't have that. It had a lot of dust inside, but the dust had evenly fallen down from the grill on top. It was not clustered around any high voltage stuff. So it seemed fairly low hours. All Sears branded tubes inside. And I really don't think the owner would have gone and bought another Sears tube. It's a cheap TV. You go to the general store and buy whatever they have. So anyway, I actually had most of the caps I needed in stock. I only needed to order about five of them. Mostly the electrolytics. And yeah, full recap. Powered it on, came up beautifully. All these controls worked without any cleaning, but no sound. I could hear the crackle. There's a little bit of noise on the volume, no sound. I spent the next 2 days troubleshooting to figure out what I screwed up. And I found that if I pushed down on the circuit board with my probing stick, sound would pop in.
Shades. It only takes around 10 minutes. Easy to fit into your busy. You can get your free smart.
And so I went and I resoldered every connection. I metered out every trace. I was metering out coils, resistors. I couldn't figure it out. Then finally I realized I had replaced which electrode? This one here? I had replaced, is this the right one? I think this is it. I had replaced this, it's either this or a 3. But I had replaced an electrolytic on the board. And, this is a big axial capacitor that sits like that. And the one I replaced it with was, a tiny little radial cap. So, of course, you bend the legs over. And I usually check to make sure that the path is clear. In this case, it wasn't. And it was just touching on the legs of a resistor. And when I pushed down on the board, it would pull away and that short would go away. So, yeah. One problem I spent chasing my tail was me, because it's always me. But otherwise, a full blind recap, that was the only issue that I ran into. And it's working great. Of course, working on tube equipment in the summer is kind of masochistic because it's freaking hot out. I think the day I was working on this, it was like 34 degrees Celsius outside, and I'm just drenched in sweat. So, of course, it's a tube TV. Take a little bit to warm up.
The new video computer system by Atari. More games, more fun.
So this is a little squished on this side. This is one of my channels in the home cable setup. And this is a Chromecast going to a HDMI to composite converter. What it does is it basically takes widescreen and shrinks it down. And because these commercials were 4:3, they're actually getting shrunk. And I don't know why it's off to one side. The other channels seem to be rather centered. So there's something going on there, but we can go and tune through. So here's the UHF tuner. It's a little bit dirty on the tuner.
I guess it emits radiation when it's due.
Yeah, I think this is the last thing I have to clean. Yeah, see, it pops in a little bit there.
Controversial measure passed by a single vote.
You really should have voted, huh?
But there's very little buzz.
Lights out, you punk kids! Yay! We took back the night!
Hey, fellas. Hey, you want to stop with the kicking? My pills are in that can. Good gravy.
So, yeah, it works great. And, like, it just pops right in. Well, nearly in. I had that adjusted a little bit better. I went and cleaned the horizontal hold control. Need to adjust it slightly. There we go. That's better. That pops in perfectly. And then I also have VCR playing some cartoons.
What's up my best side? Now we can best...
And yeah, it works quite well. There's fine tuning. Of course, all the original felt pads. If you look on the back of this, I noticed some of these Sears sets with the knobs on the side, the little portable ones, had controls up here. So the controls that are down here were up here, you know, volume, brightness, vertical, whatever. And they just put a little label over here, but it's open on the back side. So this was probably common to a set that had controls on the front, maybe like a previous model year. And look at this handle. It's hard to film in here with the lighting, but it's minty. Like, it's absolutely minty. Normally these are flaking off and bent and everything. And this is me. I use this to carry it out to my car. Like, it's fairly solid. Take a look on the side here. Got the on volume, brightness, contrast, and vertical hold. And then on the back there's more controls, including horizontal hold. Has an earphone jack. And I've seen in some of the Sears catalogs they actually advertise these with those old school 50s and 60s, you know, beige colored earphones that, you know, transistor radios would sell with. So this was kind of meant to be the bedroom or second room or portable. You take it out to the cabin. It's neat. It's pretty neat. And here is a very cool part about this. Look at how shallow this is. This is like less than a foot deep. This is incredibly, incredibly shallow. The deflection on this tube is ridiculously wide. And I believe with like, I believe they had high deflection tubes for black and white sets. Like, obviously not color, those are pretty deep. And I remember reading that like the picture isn't as good on them, which would kind of make sense on something like this. I mean, this is a cheap set. That's the whole point of it, is it was meant to be your second TV, or if you just needed a cheap TV. yeah, this thing has been barely used at all. Having the built-in antenna working. It also came with an UHF loop antenna, which kind of surprised me because we didn't have any UHF stations in my city until the 2000s. So I don't know what that UHF loop antenna would have been doing. Taking a look around the back here, UHF, VHF connections, just, standard twist on. I like these instead of the screws. They're easier, cheaper, but easier. Your information, model number, chassis number. This is 115 watts for a TV, a black and white TV. It's a Simpsons Sears. CSA approved. This is meant to be sold here in Canada. And the power cable was actually wrapped around the back, and you can see it's very similar to when these sort of power cables are left in like a styrofoam packaging and they melt the styrofoam. I'm guessing this plastic on the back is like a cheap plastic that has some similarities, similar chemical properties to styrofoam, or it would react with this power cable long term. Circuit breaker, more picture controls. Japan. Before seeing made in Japan on something was a good thing. I can't get over how, shallow this is. It's ridiculous. I love it. On the other side, got the UHF tuner, more felt. And the speaker, nice speaker. Sounds fine. Sounds fine for an old TV. Here's a look inside. Back cover just comes off with 4 screws, there, and then 2 along the bottom. And really what I've done to this is I cleaned off the dust, very, very gently cleaned the tubes. So usually I polish the top because that's where all the gunk that smells when they heat up sits. And very gently just wipe it off with a damp cloth, very gently, because this ink, especially the ink that shows the tube model, it just comes off super easy. And I want to keep all the original Sears labeling on these. I think, yeah, that one unfortunately partly came off, but the rest are good. And recapped all of it again because I would like to keep this thing working. It is very low hours. It works amazing considering what it is. A early Japanese tube television, the kinds that were, built very cheaply, designed to just be like for a second room in the house and then thrown away when they break. So, this isn't super common. You can say what you want. It's not the best. They're physically secured, which is what matters. There was a three sections in the electrolytic can that was down here. So these 2 I just have going off this transformer here, which I believe is just used as an inductive coil. And then this is the speaker transformer. So that's where the 3rd section goes. I'll insert a picture of the inside of this. I don't feel like taking the screw off. The high voltage cage, spotless, absolutely spotless inside. And coming around the side here, all these controls have the original felt. And all I did is just put them in some slightly warm water, sometimes a bit of dish soap, just a little bit, and then just get a toothbrush and you just sort of gently clean out all the gunk. And the only control that I've cleaned on this entire TV, or 2 controls, is the volume control. Slightly scratchy, wasn't bad, but I cleaned it. And the horizontal hold. And again, just slightly wiggly, like when you adjust it, it would just get a bit of it wouldn't move in a very stable fashion. But once you left it, it was fine. So controls were all spotless. I don't think it had ever been opened because I couldn't see any markings on the screws. There's the picture tube for those interested. And there's the date, February 1970. Interesting, this is a Toshiba picture tube. I'm seeing a lot of other components in here labeled Sanyo. And I had assumed this was a Sanyo, but maybe this is a Toshiba. I know both made stuff for Sears. Yeah, like this tuning assembly says Sanyo, for example. And I know I saw Sanyo on some other components, so who knows. Quick look at the controls back here. These are accessible with the cover on. You have AGC, vertical linearity, height, and horizontal hold. These require like a little screwdriver. This one sticks out the back. And that one there is your horizontal range. Here's the inside of the back cover. So there's the tube chart, safety interlock on the power cord, and here's the built-in rod antenna. Of course, in, minty, brand new shape. And there's your how it gets matched. So I believe this is just a wire. That's your other side of this balanced adjustment, and a little resistor across them. And that goes out the back to the VHF and UHF connections. And on the back here, what's neat is normally when you have these sort of internal antenna connections, there'll be a switch or there'll be little fork terminals. These actually have these little things, and then you have these little, spade terminals. And they just slide on like that, and that's how you connect the internal antenna. I've never seen this before. So yeah, that's about it for just wanted to do a little show and tell for this neat 19-inch. Like, it's big. It's a bulbous TV for what it is. And yeah, show it off. All original except for the capacitors. I've cleaned 2 controls, soon to be the third one, to get the UHF a little bit more stable. It's fine on some stations. Yeah, I mean, even the smell. So when old electronics, especially tube electronics, heat up and you get that old smell, this doesn't have any smell at all. It smells a bit like heat. There's a little bit of heat coming out of the back here. But it doesn't have a bad old smell. Like, it's such a low hours TV. Anyway, that's it. Bye.